Hi. It's June 22nd, and we're going to talk about the stock market today. My name is Manoj. Welcome back to my live stream that I've just started doing. We were having a few technical difficulties before, but I was able to sort those out. So let's talk about what's been going on in the market recently and how I'm reacting to everything that's going on. There's been a lot of interesting, different kind of like chess pieces at play kind of like right now. A lot of strategic opportunities, a lot of strategic money raises, like what Google did today was pretty interesting. A lot of strategic deals, like SpaceX is copying deals, Anthropic is. There's a bunch of interesting different aspects of the AI revolution that we're seeing playing out right now. And one of the first stocks I wanted to talk about was Google stock. I know we're on YouTube right now, so it's owned by Google. Google is one of my favorite stocks. I've been invested in it for over 5 years now. I think I invested in it originally about maybe even over 10 years ago, but I bought a very small amount. 5 years is when I really got serious. I think about 2021, 2022, when it dipped really hard in 22, I threw in a pretty decent amount. But what I was going to say is that Google, I think, is raising $60 billion in cash, and they're doing that through I believe it's some sort. It is a share dilution, so that's very rare to see an established company like Google raise that amount of money, or any amount of money for that matter. Because why would Google, a company with amazing free cash flow, a company with amazing revenue, amazing profit, and a fat cash pile, why would they want to raise extra money? Um, and I believe the answer is that the amount of capital needed to really grasp the future, the amount of investment needed to create the future is so big that these companies know they could go all in and use up all their cash, but why not borrow it? And I'm never pro borrowing money, and I don't think Google, a company like Google or Apple or Amazon or any of the Mag 7 or any of, these and companies that are crushing it, they have no reason to raise money, only if it makes logical sense. And I think it does in this scenario, because if they could raise $60 billion, and that's maybe like a drop in the dilution in the long term of the company. And if that can help Google kind of feel comfortable to get to the next level as a company, and with keeping their balance sheet good, if they want to raise their capex now and spend more on acquiring companies for AI, investing in AI, which is what they're doing, then that's going to massively, massively pay off for them in the future. So I think when you see a company like Google doing something like that, it's not, the Google sold off hard today. I was looking at like a 20, 30 point drop, 30 points at one point. I think it stayed down to at least 25 points more. I mean, maybe more. Um, and it's almost like about, we're getting like 20%, almost off the highs, which is not like that bad, but it's like the market is reacting in a weird way to this. They're thinking that, oh, Google's in trouble. They're raising cash, what's going on? And to me, it seems rather obvious that Google is raising it to build something much bigger in the future. And I remember during 2022 and even 2023, there was a lot of um, chatter in the financial world about Google um, being dead, and the search engine being dead, and Google being a dead company because their main business is search. So people were saying that, oh, this is very bad for Google. OpenAI is going to replace Google. We're not going to need Google anymore. And then Google created Gemini, which a lot of people use, one of the top AIs. But more importantly, if you look back at the history of artificial intelligence and machine learning, Google has been at the forefront, especially with things like Google DeepMind. They have Waymo. They have a bunch of different AI companies under their umbrella that they've been working on for decades, and way before other companies even existed, like OpenAI and Anthropic and all these companies that people talk about big. And that's one thing that I think people tend to forget about Google is that they're like the OG original AI players, artificial intelligence players. So they know what they're doing. And long term, I think Google is definitely going to be one of the winners. Another really cool aspect of Google is their investments. I mean, beyond their own personal having people just say their search, they have a massive TV presence with YouTube TV. They have YouTube, which I think has become a staple of the world and world culture and, spreading interesting content around the world. YouTube's not going anywhere. People love YouTube. They're getting into all sorts of devices, at home devices. They dominate in certain sectors. I love their smart cameras. I love their Google Home. I think it's a fantastic product, way better than Amazon, in my opinion. They have Waymo, and I mean, they have tons of other little businesses. They have, for the cloud, they have a massive business for that. They have, and so Google's a very dynamic company. It's not just a search engine. And that's where we're getting to a point where we're seeing that we really don't know um, what Google's like kind of stirring up for the future, but it's something big and it's very exciting. And I will continue to be watching Google. I will, if Google drops, another 100 points or 200 points. I mean, which it's not going to, but if for some reason it did, I will be buying if we hit like a recession or something. Which the chances of a recession this year are rather slim. But let's move on now because I think that Google is such an amazing company that we could literally talk about it forever, or at least I could, because I have a lot of respect for Google. Sergio Brin was very smart man, and then like the current CEO of Google is doing a fantastic job with the company. So I think that we're going to see a lot of good things to come, and yeah, go Google and go YouTube. Shout out to YouTube. All right. So let's move on to a few other stocks. So I think there was two main stocks that I follow that joined the S&P. I think it was the S&P 100, um, or maybe the Nasdaq 100. One of the like core 100 stocks is labeled under this tier, and they were added to that index today. I think it's the Nasdaq 100. So this is like the top 100 tech stocks in the world, and the two ones I'm not sure. I think CoreWeave was added. I'm not sure exactly, but I know for sure that Enbis, Nebius, and Rocket Lab were added to, and I both those companies I'm just enamored with. So I think what I saw this morning was Enbis hit right, it like touched 300 a share and then went down. And that's pretty expected. You got short-term investors that just want to make like a quick buck, and they're going to get in and buy Enbis, at 200 or 150, or, and then even 250, and they want to just make, 20, 30, 50% and get out. They don't, and that's fine. So that's why it sold off today. So my point is that it didn't sell off for any other marginal reason. I'm not saying it's like a screaming buy over here. I'm not saying like Enbis is going to become like, you know, go to 1,000 a share in like a few, you know, weeks or months. I mean, anything can happen, but I mean, it's going to take years. But the fact is that long term, I think Enbis is still fairly valued, and the valuation is going to start to look um, more attractive in the near term, like in the next probably 6 months to a year. You might look at Enbis and say, hey, this is 250, $300 stock, and it should be trading at $500. So the reason that Enbis is doing so good is because they are trying to kind of like change the game entirely when it comes to data centers. The scale of their build out, the demand that they're looking for is actually quite incredible. So they're getting contracts with companies left and right. I think they have ones with multiple companies. I could probably list them, but they're in the Mag Seven, a lot of them, and they're doing some fantastic things. Um, another the other company that I was going to just quickly touch on was Rocket Lab, and a lot of people were saying that, oh, Rocket Lab is going to keep pumping after the SpaceX IPO, and look at, like we were all talking about SpaceX, me and my friends, and we were saying how it really hit that peak around like 225, and today I saw it collapse below what it opened at. Like it was at 160, I believe. Like I think that's the price it actually opened at on the IPO day. And today it's trading at like 154 after hours. So it got absolutely crushed in the last like week or so, which is crazy because it went up, but I mean, it's kind of not crazy, but it's like, is it shorting? Probably, because there's a lockup period. Are certain people selling their initial positions? Maybe they just want to get out. I don't know. I don't see how it could have that much downward pressure if people are locked up, unless there is institutional shorting and big time shorting of the company. It is overvalued, but that doesn't mean it can't necessarily grow into its valuation. So looking at that, I would say that um, when I look at companies like Rocket Lab or ASTS or Lunar or other space stocks, and they've rallied extremely hard this year, they're coming back down. They're crashing back down, and they had that initial pre SpaceX IPO bump, and I think some of that was due to SpaceX, but I think kind of like, I don't want to say SpaceX ruined it for these companies, but in the short term they ruined the momentum. They ruined, because it's just like you have this massive company, it's going up crazy, and then now it's crashing. And I think the same people that are kind of like shorting SpaceX are shorting the entire space sector itself, because they're just like, the whole thing is overvalued. And that could be true for certain stocks. And I'm a big believer in Rocket Lab and ASTS as well. um, I obviously, looking back, I would have wished potentially that maybe I should have trimmed more around 150 a share. I think my top sell was around 140 something, but that's okay. It's not like I'm too stressed out about it, because I really feel like long term, Rocket Lab is going to be a three, four, $500 company, and SpaceX will grow into its valuation. If you look at the short term, it's going to be rocky. It's going to be a bumpy road, and just, you have to just kind of suck it up and deal with it, and that'll be okay. But for a company like ASTS, however, because Rocket Lab has that upside, maybe it could double, maybe it could triple. It might take it a little while. Maybe it could go 5x. It might take it a while, but I think ASTS has potentially, even more potential, and they're getting slammed. They launched those Bluebirds rockets, and I mean the satellites, and successfully through SpaceX's rockets, they launched the Bluebird satellites, and they're in orbit, and they're doing what they should do, and there's nothing technically wrong with the company, but the stock has just been going down and down, kind of like as SpaceX went up, those stocks, when the IPO was announced, the space stocks mooned, and then when SpaceX IPO came, all the other space stocks were collapsing, the days leading up, and then on the day of the IPO, while SpaceX was mooning, they were all collapsing. Everyone thought all the equity was from the market, which is being drained into SpaceX, which maybe could be true. But now when we see SpaceX going up, these stocks are going down, and now we see SpaceX going down, and these stocks are going down. So what's happening here? Like I said, the shorting earlier. So that, in my opinion, creates an advantage for you and me to say, hey, look, nothing has changed. The Bluebird satellites are in the sky. Um, the narrative hasn't changed. If the stock price of ASTS, which I think hit a low today of around like $72, 70, somewhere around there, if it continues to go, like, and I bought today, And I mind you, I bought last week, I think around 82, and I was like, oh, if it goes to 70s, I'm gonna buy hard. And then I looked at it today, and it was like in the 70s, and this morning, like it's 78, and I was like, I'm gonna get ready to buy more, but let's just see what happens. Yeah, and then it dropped to 73, 70 or 75, 74, 73, and I was like, oh man, it's really getting juicy here, and I was like, I have two scenarios. I can either buy the stock, and keep buying. Like I'm not going to go all in right now. That's kind of a strategy that I can teach people to say, hey, if a stock you like, is at $80 and you bought some and then it dips to $70, um, buy more if you really believe in it. And then, I mean, it might be at $60 next week, or it might be back to 80. Who knows? Right. So I'm saying, from a risk reward point of view, I think that it's fair enough if you believe in the stock that at $70 or 72 today or 73, whatever I bought it at around the low 70s, that was a decent buy. I didn't, like I said, I didn't buy much. I probably bought like 50 shares or so. And if it goes to 60s next, tomorrow or this week, if it, space really gets demolished, I'll probably be buying more because, not like I said, nothing has changed. People could say these are all hyped up stocks and this and that, but I mean the hype isn't done either. So we're gonna see volatility, but does are on some good news, and once ASTS gets more realized and it becomes um, things start to progress in the future, I think we're gonna see the stock do well, and it might take a long time. It might barcode around you know 50 to 100 a share for a year or two, which I don't really care because when it goes down to 50 or whatever it bottoms at, it might bottom at 20, if we have a terrible market, and things could change. Like this is a risk. This is a risk because SpaceX could eat their lunch. 'Cause at the end of the day, SpaceX could say, hey, we've invented a better technology than them, and the companies could switch the contracts and it could be worth it. But SpaceX has a lot of other things to do. And AT&T, like I said, and Verizon and T-Mobile already have the contracts with ASTS, and they already have these satellites deployed. So it's not like they're like, and SpaceX is still helping them shoot their satellites into space. I know it's business, but SpaceX knows what they're doing. And I don't think that they're trying to crush their business necessarily. I think that, Elon is a good dude for certain things. I mean, he wants to help mankind, whether that's, and I mean, a lot of people don't like Elon, but I mean, I'm just like, I truly believe that more than just money, he wants to help the world. And I think, when it comes to ASTS, it's like Elon has his hand in so many different things. I don't think if that's going to be that big of a deal for him. Even if they got 10% of the market share, this is a $1.1 trillion market a year. And if they get 10%, you're talking like $100 billion revenue company a year for ASTS. So that's why, like, I didn't even feel like I was going to talk about ASTS this long, AST SpaceMobile, but I'm just like, the conviction I have for this company, I really think, unless the narrative completely changed, and something that came out that was really flagrant against the company, I would probably continue to average down and buy at least 1,000 more shares if it dipped hard, because I feel like, why not? There's something that can make a generational wealth in the future. We're talking like like what, 30, $40 billion market cap company. I'm not even sure what it is, but I know it's in that range. It could be around 25 to 35 billion, something like that. But this stock can go to like 300-400 billion dollars one day, easy, if they can execute really well. I don't see why not. So yeah, I know I kind of stuck it on ASTS. I know he started with Google. These are kind of different companies, but they're all tech companies. That's what I love to talk about. If I think that we're gonna kind of end it here. I mean, my family just got home, so my son just started walking, so it's been really exciting in our house. But yeah, we'll pick up the stream next time and maybe talk about a few other stocks. I think next time what I'll do is I'll put in the caption what stocks we're going to talk about, like as keywords. That way people can say, hey, like these are the companies that, you know, I'm expected to hear. And then if you guys in the future want to comment, any AI companies, any space companies, any company for that matter that is doing well during this time, even if it's some company I don't know about. If you just want to put it in the comments, I can do some research and try to get back to you and give you my opinions on it. Um, well, it was great talking to you guys. I'm going to wrap it up here, and we had a good live stream today, and I hope to see you guys soon. Have a good day. Bye.